picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Has the mission been completed? You know that I have the greatest enthusiasm for it.
Hello again, everybody. This is Lou, and I'm coming to you from the display room today because in the other room you will hear nothing but the sound of rampant capitalism going on. Yes, I got some good news, actually. Well, good news in many ways, but good news in that I got a couple of big orders in, so they're plotting. But also good news in that I've heard from both Tracy and Steve, and they seem to have gotten through Hurricane Irma with a minimum of fuss. Tracy said he was out of power for a week, so I know that's no fun. I was out of power for a week during Hurricane Fran, 15, 20 years ago, and it's no fun. So, but good news, they're both well and weathered the storm. So, while that's going on, I did manage to cut a plot of the Discovery templates for myself before I had to take the plotter off onto doing the paying work. So I am going to be working on that today and tomorrow, hopefully, in and around everything else. I may have to bring the airbrush and the paints out into the old dining room and paint out there if I can't show you what's going on, or I may have to take it out of the room, show you, and then go back into the room and paint. It's going to be a cluster, but we'll get through it. But the other project I was taking care of for myself this week was to electrify my cabinets. I've got two big tower cabinets. Let me see. There's the other one. Wait a minute. If I can flip around here. Yes, there's the other one. And I've got models in those cabinets that depend on running through transformers, and I've got no power to get to those cabinets. So what I have decided to do for myself is something very simple. Let me show you. It's basically take an adapter. I've got a chunk of hole in the bottom of this tower. I've got to cut this plug off, run the wire through and out the bottom, put a new plug on it, plug it in the wall so that I can power the kits that I have in. And when you do, it looks like this. I've already tried it out. I've got some things already plugged in, but powers the Daedalus back up. And you might recognize this guy. He runs on batteries, so he doesn't have to worry about being plugged in. But the hopper gets plugged back in, gets powered up, so you can see it in all its lit up glory. And way up there I have the Big Boy Enterprise bridge from Time Slip that I need to take those little fixtures out and make some sort of room around it. But these guys are sitting in cabinets with no power on them, and that's just a shame. And I'm hoping to alleviate that problem. On this side, oh, by the way, this is, I keep talking about the Discovery that I already built. This is that, and I believe it was a Stargazer Discovery that I had built a while ago, and there's video on that, so if you look to find it, I'm sure you will. But this is the other cabinet that I need to power up. I've got a pod, Flying Sub, and Jupiter 2 that all could stand to be powered up if only I had power running to them. So that's the other job I want to get done this week. Well, the good news is I got the cabinets all wired up today. I've powered up Jupiter 2 that hasn't seen power in a couple years. Everything seems to be working just fine on it. And of course, Flying Sub from this year's Wonderfest. But now I have to get another adapter to power the pod up there. I had to sacrifice the pod's power pack. Boy, say that 5 times real fast. The pod's power pack to make the Jupiter 2 power work. That's one cabinet. Let me show you the other cabinet. Now this cabinet over here, because it is so tough to get to, I put a handy dandy little switch on the power cord for it. And there we can see the Daedalus is powered up, which hasn't been powered in quite a while. The hopper and Way up there is my Big Boy Enterprise bridge. But let's see if we can get in there. It's been a while since this has been powered up. And it's even more impressive with the lights off. But scant success for the fact that I did not get any painting, or haven't got any painting done on the Discovery yet today. Okay, welcome back. It is Wednesday, and as you can hear the sound of the plotter in the background, I am still working on another order. Actually, an order from Steve came in after Tracy's order, so I'm working on that, but I have got to get some paint on this guy. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and mask in the dark areas, and I'm starting with a neutral gray Tamiya, and that's going to be on the darkest areas, and I can let that dry. What I'm going to be doing is paint the dark areas, mask the dark areas to keep them dark, and then work progressively lighter. So let's get started. Well, huzzahs and handsprings. I have finally gotten the last of the orders out the door, and I am back to painting on the Discovery. I was able to put on some darkened coats this morning just in some areas, and I took a patchwork attack on the spine to throw in some contrasting bits, and that'll all be blended in. Don't worry, that's not the final appearance. But now I am going to start putting some textures on the engine block. It gets a different paint treatment than the dome does, or the ball up front does. Basically what I've done is I've just laid down these textures, and I'm going to spray a darker contrasting color through them, move it around, spray it again, move it around, spray it again. You know the routine by now. And that's going to set up a faux camouflaging almost effect that I will come back and blend in with lighter coats. But first we put the dark coats on. And here is the Discovery at the ugly stage. I've taken these templates, as you see here, and I've sprayed them through, moved them and sprayed again, and you can see the camouflage effect that it's giving the ship, giving the illusion of more detail than is actually there. And of course, let me pull these out because they don't need to be attached right now. Of course, this will all get blended down, but you can also see where I've darkened in some panels that I'm going to be covering up with templates, like covering up that whole plate area so that I can paint around it with different colors. And I'm doing the same thing on the neck piece and on the sphere up front, just darkening in some shapes that I can refine later. But doing the texturizing, and I'll go over these. I've got this dark pass. What I normally do is a dark pass, and then like a bright white pass, and then I'll do a slightly darker white, or don't really dark white, a very light gray. It won't be completely stark white, but I'll do a blending coat over that to knock down the extremes of both the dark and light. But that's the idea. It just lends a little bit more detail, more randomized detail to the pods. Well, hello and welcome back. It is Thursday morning, and I expect to get a full hot day's worth of painting done on the Discovery today. When we last left our patient, I had put the darker pattern on, and now I'm going to put a white, a really strong white over top of that, and then we kind of blend them back together to find a medium tone in the center that has white highlights and dark shadows. So I'm going to do that over the engine compartment and over the spine compartment. And then I'm going to start working on the command sphere. Now you can see where I have darkened in some panels, and I'm going to cover over the ones I wish to keep both the darker color and this gray color, and then start putting lighter variations over it, and generally start working the tones and getting some different breakup in here. This is what I am using as reference. These are from the from the 50-foot prop, I believe, because it still has that those spinal pieces that were removed just prior to filming. But you can see the breakup, the subtleties in the grays, particularly on the back. Now, I am not going to try to reproduce each individual plate. I'm more looking for the tone of it, the idea of it, the concept. And but you can see here that where the different plates are kind of broken up, and that's up to you to how slavishly devoted to the actual plating you want to be, or how much of an interpretation, I guess is the word I'm looking for, of this painting scheme. But that's secondary. The first thing I want to do is work on the engine block. Okay, what I'm doing now is doing a white pass over top of the pass I did yesterday, and you can see, I'll point out a couple, you can see where the bright whites now are coming up and adding another layer of detail to the overall patterning. Here's some white going over top of the dark gray from yesterday and filling in some of these other areas. And then once this is done, I will do a light mid-range blending coat over all of it. But you can really see now where it's starting to add in a lot more detail than what is indicated in the plastic. Okay, the back end looks appropriately freckled. It's been highlighted and shadowed, and now we put it aside and do an overall blending coat on it later. Now I need to carry that same technique over onto the spinal column. Okay, here you can see the white pass added to the darker pass. And now it's time to let this dry for a bit and then come back with a overall blending coat to make this hit a nice mid-range. What this does is it adds a level of shadow and detail to everything. Yes, you could paint this very stark white or even a flat one color light gray and it would look fine, but I think it would be missing that extra little oomph that you get out of adding these textures, details to it. So now is the time to let it dry, and along with this. And now how sharp and how fuzzy, for lack of a better term, or out of focus the shapes are depend on how well you stick everything down, whether you hold it up and spray through it or whether you stick it down on the surface and spray through it. And the mistake that I've made here, and I won't recommend you do the same, is using the Tamiya white, which is a gloss instead of flat white. I think you should use flat white, not regular Tamiya white, because that Tamiya white has a gloss to it, and what it does is it builds up on your templates more than the flat white does, and it makes them messier to work with. So let's let it sink in for a while. Okay, I've applied a blending coat over top of the engine module, or the I guess the nuclear reactor module. And as you can see, the whites are no longer as white as they were, and the blacks or the dark grays are no longer as dark as they were. That's the whole idea of a blending coat. It kind of unifies and brings everything together, and what you have is an overall gray appearance, but with much more interest in the details than you had just by what was molded on. You can see that still the darks are still there. And again, this is impressionistic painting. This is completely up to you as far as how dark you want to make the darks, how much blending you want to do. It just adds a whole level of customization and makes the ship uniquely yours, because there's no way two people could paint even with the same templates could paint their ships exactly the same. So you get that little bit of pride in ownership that you have something that nobody else can exactly duplicate. So and of course once I hit this with a flat primer, it's gonna bring up the contrast even more. So I may want to over blend with the idea that the clear coat is going to bring some contrast back out, or alternately you can clear coat this, see what that result is going to be, and then choose to put another blending coat over top of it. Either way, it's up to you. And now that I've done this, I need to carry it back over. So here you can see an example of what that coat looks like before it was blended. You can see the Starks, and not the Game of Thrones Starks, but you can see the Starks color contrasts in there that you can knock down with the blending coat. Starting to work on the, I guess the back neck. I don't know the anatomical part of it. It's the part that goes on the front of the engine module, and it connects to the spine at the back here. It goes right about there. And I am basically protecting some colors that I already have, which are the darker and this mid-gray. Then I want to keep this color, or at least for now, and I can start painting in some lighter ones. Okay, here's the back of the back plate that goes on the back of the main dome. And I'm just taking some random plates there and covering them up, and I'm going to spray a lighter coat on that, and then cover more up, and then spray a lighter coat, that kind of stuff, and play with the individual tones and shades that I get. And now we're getting onto the fun stuff, and here's the first example of using those French curve parts to mask off a particular shape. So I'm going to go ahead and spray that, remove the masks real quickly, and then spray something adjacent to it. And here I'm just dividing up even smaller sections of the big platings and spraying those different colors, and then we'll work in all the shades as it goes. And I'm working on the bottom of the command sphere and just sectioning things off. Now obviously those darks will never stay that dark, but this is more along the lines of the tones that I'm going for. So when I blend when I put a white or a whiter coat over that bottom, it'll blend all those guys in. Those are not to be that contrasty. And now you can see everything's kind of blended back, and this takes care of all of the things that are darker up to the mid-tone. And now I'm going to put in some highlights that are brighter than the mid-tone and then blend them back kind of down to the mid-tone. But much more subtle look now than what I had going on before. And here you can see I've got the whiter highlights on here. So now it's time to blend those down back to the mid-tone, and we will be done with at least the bottom part of the ball. The top part I'm going to leave for later, because I'm getting to that point where I weather things and I tend to overwork them, and I think I'm overworking this, so I just want to walk away from it for a while and then come back and make sure that the top matches the bottom in the amount of weathering. Okay, I'm getting ready to close up shop here for a Thursday. I think I've accomplished what I set out to do, and I need to go get some more white Tamiya flat white as it is, so it's a good place to stop. But here you can see the top of the ball where I started today, and the bottom, and I think you get a better idea of what all is involved in making it look like that. So between that and I've got to detail the doors and pop them into place, but we've got a good start on the head there. The collar, or the back of the head is good. This is also part of that back of the head assembly, so that's looking good. Engines are looking good. I took some black and sprayed them in there, and I'll hit that with a little bit of the light gray once more. The spine is looking pretty good. I'm going to sit on that for a while and see what I think about it, and see whether it needs to have any more. Yes, it's upside down. I know, it's gravity. Whether it needs to have any more blending done to it, or whether I need to go in and pick out some fine details. That might be fun. But we're coming down to the wire on it. It's nearly done. It's deceptive at this point, but all I gotta do is finish up the head and paint and pop that onto the end of the spine. I've got the bank of windows here. Now, yes, it looks like I've covered them up, painted them, but there are vinyl pieces underneath that will allow the clear window to shine through. And right now, like I've said before, I get to the point where I think I'm overdoing stuff, so it's best to walk away. Okay, here's the neck piece with those. I'm sorry, it's still Thursday night. Here's the neck piece with all the vinyl taken off of it. And you can see I left really a lot of those too dark. So I need to do a blending coat to bring those back up. Hello and happy Friday to you. We are going to get another good day of work on the Discovery today. And we might even get finished. Who knows? Right now I am tweaking the template set. I am looking at what I've done so far, how much of the templates I have needed and how much I have not, and how much I need to that I didn't include, like adding additional copies of things. I found out from doing the template or doing the texturing yesterday that I could have still to have had more copies of the texture piece in the template set, so I have increased that number. I have found that I ended up using or reusing the curves on these more often than I thought I would, so I don't need to include as many of those in the template set as I was planning. Things like that, little tweaks. Also in the shapes of things, like things I plotted that actually needed to be a little bit bigger or smaller, things like that. So that's what I'm doing this morning. I have put a coat of the satin clear on the completed engine section. Glued all that together last night. Glued the neck together last night. I'm really happy with how this neck section is turning out. And I've found another secret weapon that I am happy to pass along to you, because I was thinking about having to, now that I've got all this built and I've got texture, or I've got tones of gray on it, I didn't want to build up too many layers of paint. And look at that. That is pretty. I just like the way that turned out. So what's the best animal for that? And I was running out of the Tamiya white, the flat white, or I was out of flat white. I was faced with the prospect of picking up some more flat white this morning, because this white, even though it does not say it, is a semi-gloss. It turns into a semi-gloss or a gloss when you spray it, and it doesn't mix well with other flats, and at least not in my experience, and it gums up the templates. Most importantly, it lays on, because it's glossy, it beads up on the vinyl, and it makes it a mess to try to work with a lot. So, bad boy on the white. So I was thinking I was going to have to put not going to have to, I was choosing to put a light coat of white over top, a blending coat, if you will, over top of the contrast work I had done yesterday. When I fumbled through my case and I found this. Comart comes to the rescue once again. This is Opaque White Comart. I picked up a set of opaques at Wonderfest this year just to play with. They call it opaque. It is still a bit translucent. It is still a bit runny, which makes it perfect for blending. This is the perfect blending color. I swear, between this and the transparent smoke, Comart has pulled my bacon out of the fire more times than Arby's has pulled their ham off the grill. So, what I've done is took a light coat after I was happy with the blending, took a light spraying of the Comart Opaque White, and just knocked back the contrast, or knocked back the darkness on all that, which doesn't plaster a white over top of it. Sometimes, and this is my problem, not yours, when I am running Tamiya whites or Tamiya paints through the airbrush, sometimes, depending on how delicate your airbrush is or how nimble your spraying finger is, I can accidentally, pull back too much, and all of a sudden I've got a big glop of paint. The Comart comes out so much smoother and easier that I could take it real lightly and just build up the amount of opaqueness that I want. So very, very happy to have run across the Comart transparent, or sorry, opaque white. Even though it says opaque white, it's kind of transparent. So this is done. Very happy with this. I've got a little bit of hand detailing work to do, and I want to use the circle mask to spray just that indent there. But very happy with that. Very happy with this. Very happy with the spine. I need to put a coat of the satin clear on that, which is going to be a neat trick because I'm going to have to set it up outside to do it. So really all that's left today is to do the top of the sphere, and we will be done. I've got the windows. Now there's a mask on there. Hopefully you can see. And Marco, I'm sending you your masks today. This is Friday, by the way, so hopefully you'll get them pretty soon. And this will pop up into there. I've got the doors. Where are the doors? Where's Jim Morrison? People are strange when you're a stranger. My favorite Doors song. Anyway, got the doors. They've got the panels masked off for those. I'm going to take a little bit of the transparent smoke and put it in the crease of the opening of the door, and there's a little speckle of dirt that happens over the front of those doors that I need to include on that, and then they'll be ready to install. And like I said, the last bit is doing the top part of that, and that's today's goal, and then slapping the whole thing together. So what I'm going to do now is take the spine outside with the two little supports that I've got for it and put a coat of satin over top of it. Okay, I've cleaned off the desk except for the parts that I'm going to be needing for the next immediate thing. But one last step I want to do before I start working on this is I want to tape this off, hit this with a coat of satin clear just to protect it, and then I'm going to tape the bottom off and start working on the top. But protecting this is paramount. Okay, back from lunch, and I've got most of the top done. I'm sorry I didn't film more of it, but I just got so caught up in doing it that it was hard for me to put the paint down and pick up the camera. But now I'm at a good stopping point, so I figured I'd show you what I did. Basically just did what I did on the bottom, only along the top. A friend of mine saw this and said, what are you doing painting a small Death Star? And, you know, I'm sure one day they'll find his body, but until then, I'd remind him this is the Discovery. Thank you very much, heathen. But you can see this dark spot, this perimeter, this main circumference there is way dark. Well, I'm going to blend that in, but it does have a predominantly darker, the stripes are predominantly darker than the rest of the ball, so it's easier to mask that off and leave it the primer color, and then come back in and lighten it up with successive coats of the lighter gray paint and then the white Comart over top of it. So we're just down to that last bit. I've got the window sill painted, masking that off. This bottom, of course, is just being protected because it's already been painted. I have the doors painted, ready to go in. Basically, we're down to just this last bit, so I just need to work out some variations in here, and then we'll be ready to do the final work. Almost there, kids. Okay, it's getting on into Friday afternoon, and it's getting to the time where I normally would shut down and start chopping a video together, but I am very close to finishing this up, so I'm going to push on through. The top is done except for making some white highlights on the top dome that I will blend back down, but that's the only thing that's missing, and I'm going to take the tape off the bottom to see if there are any panels there that need to be made truly white before the blending happens. So let's do that. Okay, we're winnowing down to the end of the day. I know I've already said that once, but I'm repeating myself. I am not going to get as much done on this kit this week as I had hoped. because I really don't want to rush it. I've taken the masks off of the windows. Everything looks good there. Now, the window plastic, like everything else, is test shot, so it is a little bit foggy. It's not been, the mold's not been polished up, so it's a little bit smoky. Sort of like the same problem I had with, what was the last test shot where the windows were so dirty? Oh, it was the Proteus, where the windows were not as clean as they could have been because of the test shot plastic. But that works very well. I need to throw a coat of clear satin on the top of this. What's nigging at me is I still have a bunch of these tiny details to paint. I'm going to touch them on by hand, like these raised panels there, before I am willing to call it done. But you can see I've got the colors on it the way I want it to be, and it matches. Importantly, I made sure to bring this in to make sure that the colors were matching in tone to the neck. And really the last thing to do is to glue this into there, glue that onto there, and then glue the front and the back onto the rod, which I will cover. I might do some of that this weekend, but I'll definitely cover in the next video. But this is going to be, I think, where we're going to leave the Discovery for this week. And that's going to drag us screaming and kicking to the end of another week. Second week on the Discovery. Lost a couple of days up at the front of the week due to getting orders out, but that's what you got to do. So I'm trying to block the horrible backlighting here. So here's the current state of Discovery. Now, once I put these doors in, I realized that the frames were a little bit too white. That's the danger of painting too many things separately. You want to, you got to put them together and then see if you need to adjust one thing or the other. Separately and apart from the rest of the head, the doors looked fine. But once you put them in place, then you see the adjustments that need to be made. But here's where we are on head. Head mostly done. Just the detail work to be painted, and then final construction, and I'll cover all of that on next week's report. So until then, when we finish this Discovery, be good to each other. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, be good. Lens flare. Ooh, be good to each other. Dang nabbit. And we'll see you back here next time.
X-Ray Delta One, this is Mission Control. 2049er, transmission concluded.